Hi everyone, meteorologist Josh Ruggert here in studio. Hope you're having a great start to your Tuesday. We've got a bit of a later weather live stream, at least for the morning show. I've been here for quite a long time, but I felt like I needed to give an update to all of you guys because it does look like the severe weather potential is starting to increase for a large part of northwest Arkansas and especially the river valley. So this will be a quicker weather live stream. We'll keep it moving. We'll answer some questions, comments, concerns, and then we'll move on from there. But just wanted to provide this update to you guys because we have seen a bit of an uptick in that severe weather potential. So hope everybody's having a great day. Check out the comments right here. Brendan's locking in. We've got Caitlin in the chat right now in science class. So that's all right, Caitlin. You listen to class, and we'll keep you covered. You can probably watch this again after you get out of class here. Randall's in the chat. What's up, Randall? How you doing today? Brendan talking about the music. Carrie says, Ayo. Will this be anything like last Friday? Will this be a QLCS setup? We got a lot of questions already coming in right now, so let's go ahead and get right to it. Now, I tend to lean, I'll just say right off the bat, I tend to lean with this event being more of a QLCS type setup, kind of a classic severe weather setup, not like last Friday. I don't think it has the ceiling of last Friday, but it's still a threat that we have to watch very closely. So let's take a look at the latest severe weather outlook. This is the day one outlook, and you may have noticed that there's been a bit of an upgrade off to our north and east. That, my friends, is a moderate risk of severe weather, which is a tornado-driven moderate risk of severe weather that's located in portions of Illinois and Indiana just off to the south of Chicago. So this is where the most significant tornado potential is going to reside with this particular setup. There's going to be a warm front that is draped over these locations, which is why the severe weather potential in those spots are going to be a lot higher. A little bit farther to the south and west, we've got what I like to call gorilla hail potential over Texas and southern Oklahoma. When I say gorilla hail, I mean there is the potential for hailstones over 3 inches in diameter in this orange shaded area right here that stretches from San Angelo all the way to the south side of Oklahoma City. Now, northwest Arkansas and the River Valley is kind of in between all these risks here. We've got a level 2 to 5 slight risk of severe weather that is valid as early as 6 p.m. this evening and then continues through early Wednesday morning. Now, all modes of severe weather are possible. However, there is a lot of cloud coverage in place. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Look at the latest trends there. If the cloud coverage were to stick around, that may lower the severe weather risk, which is why there might be some more uncertainty in our area, which is why that risk is lower compared to other locations. But it does still exist. And if a storm is going to fire up over our area and take off, there is that threat for a higher end chance for severe weather. So if you want proof of that, let's look at each individual hazard here. So let's first start with the hail threat. Now, as you can see, that hashed outline right there is located along and west of I-49. That's where hailstones over 2 inches in diameter will be possible. Now, I've always had some doubts about the hail threat in northwest Arkansas and the River Valley just because of the storm mode. Typically, when you see a line of showers or storms, which I think we will have, that tends to limit the hail potential just a little bit, but we're not ruling that out right now. So if you live in the River Valley, we'll keep a close eye on that potential. There also is the threat for damaging wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. You can see that most significant threat just off to our south and west. But again, this is something we're going to have to watch very closely as these storms continue to evolve. But maybe the biggest update that we have to talk about with this particular severe weather setup is a tornado threat. As you can see, you've got that brown shaded outline located over the entirety of northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. What does that mean? Well, that means that we've got a 5% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a point. There's that brown outline. There's that 5% risk, and that includes our entire weather coverage area now. You've also got that dashed outline here. That means that if a tornado were to spawn, it could be on the stronger side. There is that parameter space in place that we could see a strong tornado or two. Now, the risk is not as high here in northwest Arkansas as it is in, let's say, Indiana or Illinois. And not only that, but Indiana and Illinois also have a higher threat for EF3 tornadoes. As a matter of fact, I kind of have that outlined here. Now, it's not going to be perfect, right? Because we still have to kind of fine tune how exactly we're going to show higher end severe weather threats. But notice that dashed outline over that red there, that's where the tornado potential is even greater. I'm talking for strong to violent tornadoes in Illinois and Indiana. So that's why you got that dashed outline there. So a lot of things going on with this severe weather setup here in northwest Arkansas, and the River Valley continues to evolve. We're still getting some more information, but Joel, you're probably right about that. Due to QLCS tornado potential, Probably that's why we're on the lower end compared to areas off to our north. But also remember, in the north, you're getting more of those supercells, right? Those isolated to scattered supercells that are tapping into that warm front. And that's when you can get some really strong tornado potential. And that's why those areas are going to be under the gun with this particular severe weather setup. All right, I see some more questions in the comments. Before we get to more details, I want to make sure we don't miss any comments here. So, Brendan, yeah, moderate in place up to our north and east. Not for our area. I can't stress that enough. We're still under a slight risk for severe weather, but that moderate risk is in place for Illinois and Indiana. So if you have some friends and family out there, like Joel is mentioning, make sure they're aware of that, because this could be a pretty dangerous day in those locations. Let's see here. Time to get the Baja Blast ready for tonight. Raven, you're right about that. We're going to have the Baja Blast ready to go. Josh, are you going to go to Taco Bell today to get a burrito and a Mountain Dew Baja Blast? Looks like that's taken off now. I guess that's my thing at this point. So I guess I have no choice but to get a burrito after this live stream, Nikita. I don't know if I'm going to be storm chasing this entire event out towards Oklahoma and Texas. I'm kind of flip-flopping on if I'm going to do that or if I'm going to stay closer to this area, because remember, I got to come into work tomorrow morning, so got to make sure we're getting enough rest and enough sleep. But at the same time, I am tempted to head a little bit farther south and west and maybe see what these Gorilla Hailers are up to, because look, I might be one of the only storm chasers that likes Gorilla Hail. I don't know. I like seeing it. I think it looks cool. And so we'll see what happens farther south and west. Cloud coverage just increased in Fayetteville. Sun was leaking through, but now it got darker. So, Joel, let's actually look at that real quick, because it is a trend I've been watching very closely. You know, yesterday the cloud coverage was very persistent. It did clear out late in the day, but, man, we got to get rid of these clouds if that instability is going to actually be in place for later on tonight and early tomorrow morning. But that tells you that the Gulf moisture return is very strong. At the same time, I know we've got clouds in place and everything, but it tells you that we've got a lot of Gulf moisture return, even some thunderstorms bellowing up in southern LaFleur County there. So definitely a lot of energy moving in. This system kind of has the opposite problem of Friday's system, where I don't think the energy is lagging behind. As a matter of fact, you're going to see it here in just a minute. If I take a wider view and we look off to our south and west, there's no doubt about it. That energy is now swinging in. There's nothing subtle about this. But sometimes when the energy is not subtle, you get so much that storms fire up everywhere, and then that limits your parameter space that we have in place. So, again, there's always a limiting factor with every single storm system. Even with the moderate risk up north, the limiting factor could be overmixing. There could be too much sunshine in those locations. So, too much of anything usually can lead to bad things. But in our case, if we've got too much cloud coverage, that will help us out quite a bit. So just something we're keeping an eye on there. Let's see. Are you going to be on the road during the severe weather? Do we need a GoFundMe account for your burrito and Baja Blast dance? I'd certainly take that, Amanda, all day long. That would be great. Yeah, you know, I think that's going to be what I do from now on. You know, last time I had a burrito and Baja Blast, I ended up getting a tornado out there in Shoto. So maybe not have one for our area, right? If that's going to be the case, because I want to make sure the severe weather stays away from Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. All right, Haley, this is a good question. So timing. So let's look at the 2-day precipitation forecast timeline here. Now, we just talked about it a little bit, but if you want a more exact kind of time frame, I think it's going to be during the late evening and overnight hours tonight. So notice how rain chances slowly start to increase after sunset across Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. By midnight, we're setting an 80% chance for showers and storms, and then those rain chances begin to taper off as we head towards the early to mid-afternoon hours on Wednesday. So this is going to be, I think, the main time frame for severe weather between like 8 p.m. through 4 a.m., and then after that point, the severe weather threat should start to drop off dramatically as that front moves in. Now, I almost don't want to show this because, look, the models, we know how rough and bad they are at times. It also is our guidance. So I think we do need to look at it just because it gives you a general idea of maybe what the timing could be. I wouldn't take the convection that it's showing as gospel, right? This can change all the time, and it's not going to be exact. So I will show it, and I know you guys can take it, but also it's not very reliable. I think some people look at it and think, okay, this is what's going to happen. A lot of storm chasers do that. Sometimes I do that. I'll put my hand up and say sometimes I do that when I go storm chasing. But this is just giving you a general idea of what's going on. So Taking that into account, let's look at what the extended HRRR is showing. Actually, I don't want to show this one. I want to show the shorter range one. We're in that period of time where we can show you maybe a shorter range model here. So here's a look at how things will evolve. So this model is showing the cloud coverage kind of sticking around throughout the late afternoon, early evening hours. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. It does show temperatures well into the 70s and 80s, especially along and south of Interstate 40. Look at Fort Smith at 3 o'clock, showing 83 degrees there, 79 in Fayetteville, and 77 in Bentonville and Rogers. Then as we move throughout the evening, it's not showing any storms popping at 4, 5, 6 o'clock. It was showing that yesterday. It's not showing that anymore, but it is showing a pretty stout line of storms falling apart a little bit in northwest Arkansas. But look at the River Valley, a little bit more stout in those areas. So this has kind of been my thinking all along with this system. I think if you were to pinpoint an exact location where the severe of the risk could be a little bit higher, it'll likely be along and south of Interstate 40. Not to say that northwest Arkansas is not under the gun as well. It's just that the River Valley may have that higher end threat for more severe weather compared to northwest Arkansas. Now notice the timing. If this is correct on the timing, you folks got to make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings. We'll talk about a way in which you can do that. But 2, 3 o'clock, I know a lot of folks are going to be asleep at this point. Now, I know we won't be asleep, but a lot of you folks may be asleep. So got to make sure we have multiple ways to receive warnings throughout this event, because I really do think this is going to be a nocturnal threat. Unfortunately, as BR just mentioned, I hate nocturnal too, BR, and it feels like every single event or almost every single event in northwest Arkansas is nocturnal, unfortunately. But again, we will be watching it very closely, and we're going to keep you informed, and we're going to keep you safe tonight into tomorrow morning. So the short range HRRR has uptrended that line a little bit. That is a nasty line of storms moving through the River Valley, and any one of those storms could be rotating within the line. Now, this model only goes out to about 3, 4 o'clock, but I think by this point, the severe of the risk is going to be dropping off. So here's a good question from Kristen. Why do these always happen overnight in northwest Arkansas? Well, a lot of the times, Kristen, you think about it, right? We think of typical classic tornado alley as Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, right? Those locations, Texas. A lot of times you get those big supercells that fire up during the peak heating times in those locations. And then we kind of get those storms as they're moving east as night begins to fall, right? So a lot of the times northwest Arkansas and the River Valley gets the secondary storms rather than the primary storms, right? We don't get those supercells that develop during peak heating. Now, sometimes that does happen. We've seen that happen in the past, but a lot of the times those storms initially form along a dry line or cold front out west and then move through northwest Arkansas during the overnight hours. Unfortunately, that's just where we are geographically. It's a similar story in the Little Rock area as well. Now, Alexis, in terms of Little Rock, right, I think the severe of the risk is a little bit more in flux. So still a slight risk in Little Rock. However, those storms may be on the weakening trend. Also, you're in between severe weather threats. I will say that as well. So look at this here. This is the day one outlook that I was just talking about, right? And then if we look at the day two outlook, notice how Little Rock's back in that slide again. So that kind of shifts just a little bit. As we go throughout the overnight hours tonight and early tomorrow morning, additional severe storms will be possible after 6 a.m. in Little Rock. Here's the day one tornado threat. Notice how it is a little bit lower in Little Rock. I think that actually does make some sense just because this line of storms might be on the weakening trend as it moves through central Arkansas. But if we go to the day two tornado outlook, you notice that it does start to increase southeast of Little Rock. So Little Rock is kind of in between risk here, Alexis. So hopefully that answered your question. I would stay weather aware. I think a lot of those storms are going to be moving through during the early morning hours tomorrow in Little Rock. So make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings in those spots. Let's see here. So now we're starting to get some specific questions about specific locations. So it's hard to do that, Taylor. Now, obviously, I know we want to know what happens in specific spots, but I hope this gives you a general idea that the entire area, right, including Rogers, does have that potential for maybe a stronger tornado or two, right? The risk is not high end, right? But it still exists. It's still there. So again, I know we want to get into specific locations and specific spots, but that's very hard to do, very hard to pinpoint when it comes to severe weather potential. I mean, any type of weather potential too, whether it be winter weather or severe weather. Davion and Leslie, you know that, right? Exactly. So, Taylor, I would just stay weather aware. As I mentioned earlier in this live stream, and Davion and Leslie, I think you would agree with this, the severe weather threat, in my opinion, is higher along and south of Interstate 40. I know they put this broad 5% tornado risk everywhere in our area, but I still think the risk is much higher south of Interstate 40 right now. But I was showing them this earlier, guys, and this is something that may limit the severe weather risk just a little bit. Man, that's a lot of cloud coverage.
The sun was peeking out at times, we would say.
Yes.
It's very thick out there.
Yes.
And it's getting humid.
Yeah, it's been humid. Yeah.
Few points were in the 60 as early as last night.
Yeah, the moisture is there for sure. And the energy is going to be kicking in, that's for sure. But my question is, the fly in the ointment with this setup is, will the storms actually be able to tap into the surface-based instability, which is in place, by the way? We already have surface-based instability, but will they be able to actually tap into that overnight tonight? I guess that's my main question. It's the exact opposite problem of the system that we had on Friday, where the energy was lagging behind. The energy is not lagging behind here, but will we have all the ingredients in place? I want to show one other thing real quick here. And first of all, make sure you guys have our Weather Authority app downloaded. I don't want to show that one, though. I want to show the other one because somebody mentioned this right here, and I've been showing this over the last several days, right? Weather Call Next Gen, $12 a year for potentially life-saving information. It only alerts you if you're in the Polygon. Well, Onyx, you just got the job. You can be our fifth meteorologist on staff because you've already got it down pat. But let's look at Max 1 here. So Onyx was just talking about this, guys, but Weather Call Next Gen, great resource to have, right? Gives you alerts only if you're within the Polygon. We're talking hyper-local alerts. I always make this comparison right here. Let's say you're in eastern Benton County towards Garfield, but there's a tornado warning in Gravette. Well, you're going to get a tornado warning alert from your generic Apple device no matter what. But with Weather Call Next Gen, you're not going to get that alert unless you're in the Polygon. So that's the biggest perk when it comes to Weather Call Next Gen. You'll also get immediate phone calls for observed tornadoes and warning upgrades. So let's say we have a considerable tornado warning that's just been issued. A strong tornado is moving through northwest Arkansas. You're going to get a direct phone call from Weather Call Next Gen. You'll also get text alerts for extreme thunderstorms. We're talking storms with over golf ball sized hail or hurricane force winds. Certainly a possibility that we could see some storms like that, especially along and west of I-49. And then a huge perk for folks that live in some more rural areas is calls to landline phones. You can sign up for that service as well when you're doing that through the website. So you can scan that QR code on your screen right now if you're on your phone, and if you're watching on a tablet or computer. You can also find that at weathercallservices.com/KNWA-NextGen. And again, I like how Dan just added this to the graphics. $12 per year, right? $1 per month. You can't beat that right there. I mean, I get a large sweet tea with light ice at McDonald's for more money than that. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So this is a life-saving service, folks. We always talk about having multiple ways to receive warnings, and this, to me, is the absolute best way in addition to a weather radio. So wanted to mention that right there. All right, let's go ahead and look at everybody's comments here. Again, I just wanted to make this a quick 20 to 30-minute live stream to get through all the information. I think we did that. The sun comes out often in Rogers. It is humid outside. Let the dogs play outside. You guys know about Nikita's dogs? Bentley and Chip? Bentley and Chip. I got it. Yeah. Bentley. Yeah, exactly. I love them. I love them. We always feature them on the Furcast. Absolutely. Hope you guys are having a great day. Nikita. Love Weather Call Next Gen. Thank you so much for that testimony as well. Thoughts on driving impacts back to NWA from Tulsa around 9 p.m. tonight? Should I do it? It's a little dicey.
Yeah. Definite, but
it's a little dicey.
Yeah, that would be a little dicey.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, you can activate Storm Chase mode with me if you want around that time. We can get a bean burrito and a Baja Blast, but that's a little dicey. That is a little bit dicey, I'll admit, on that front. I'm a little confused, Josh. It sounds like today's setup is being talked about more seriously than Friday's storms. I thought the tornado chance Friday was around 10%. Did I hear you say today's 5%? Well, we treat every severe weather setup seriously, number one. I think we had the same urgency when it came to the system last Friday. Now, the reason why the tornado threat was higher last Friday, in my opinion, is because the parameter space, of course, was on the higher end. And also the storm mode, I feel like, is more favorable last Friday for stronger tornadoes. A lot of times with these QLCS type setups, which I think was what we're going to be dealing with tonight, sometimes it's harder for these storms to become their own separate supercell and take over the environment and really tap into things. So that's why the threat is a lot more likely the farther north and east you go, because along that warm front in Illinois and Indiana, man, if I didn't have to work today, I'd be there right now, because I think somebody up there is going to get a strong tornado.
Just south of Chicago and that whole corridor.
Yes. Yeah.
It does not look good.
It does not look good whatsoever in those spots. So definitely make sure if you have friends and family who live in those locations that they have a little bit of a heads up, because it could be a pretty significant day in those spots. But again, folks, here in Northwest Arkansas in the River Valley, there are some limiting factors at play, as there is with every single severe weather setup. But
failure modes.
Exactly, always failure modes, but stay weather aware and keep a close eye on everything. Carrie, I would show you helicity tracks, but the HRRR doesn't have any. I mean, it doesn't have any through Northwest Arkansas or the River Valley. Now, it has tried to uptrend a little bit over the last several runs, but right now it just doesn't have any. I mean, I guess I can show it right now. Might as well. So stand by on that front. But the models right now, I feel like, are just useless. They're underdone per usual. Now, I think they're onto something with the lack of storms this evening. They were trying to show that yesterday. I don't think we'll have storms this evening. If we do, they might be a little lacking. So here's the updraft helicity tracks from the short range HRRR. And again, it's not showing much. It's showing some little signs of life there along Interstate 40 in LaFleur and Scott County. It also shows maybe a stronger kind of setup there in central Arkansas. But otherwise, Davion, the HRRR is just not showing a lot over our area.
Yeah, it's not. And it trended down yesterday, too.
Yes.
Last evening, when we finished the late show, we looked at the latest models, and they were starting to hint at maybe less energy moving in until we get to the overnight period.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's not something you want to see, but again, that would be at least a failure mode in terms of it's separate supercells, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think I agree with you 100% on that front. Also, the models don't typically show updraft helicity tracks for QLCS type events. So I'll say that, right? Now, here's the deal with updraft helicity. I think there's a common misconception with this as well, even among storm chasers, which is crazy to me, right? Because they should know better. But updraft helicity doesn't mean that there's a tornado on the ground when you see a helicity track.
Right. It's
showing where there could be rotating updrafts within a storm. A rotating updraft can just be a rotating updraft. It doesn't mean there's a tornado on the ground.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that there's sometimes a common misconception with that, but it does give you a general idea of where rotating storms could be, or where the parameter spaces are favorable for that. Right. Now, one other thing I want to look at here is let's look at the SIG-TOR parameters, right? Let's see. Yeah, fun. Yeah, absolutely. It's fun in the sense that it's probably going to be all over the place. Right. But this is the latest run here. So you can see the parameter space increasing this evening, which makes sense. The energy is going to kick in this evening. The low-level jet's going to kick in. That always happens at night, right? We always talk about the low-level jet. That's when the change in the winds with height becomes a little bit stronger at the lower levels of the atmosphere. Right after sunset, because you're typically missing that sometimes during the daytime hours. And then after sunset, these storms can take off. So that kind of coincides with that. You're seeing that surge. But then it tries to drop it off at 11, 12 o'clock when the storms are rolling in, according to the model. Now, there's some little areas there that are popping up, but this is why it's not showing updraft helicity tracks, because it's taking away the significant tornado parameter space. Now, why is it doing that? It's probably because it's depicting a bunch of thunderstorms developing and it's sucking out the instability really quickly. It might be depicting more cloud coverage, right? Which it is doing, which is what we're seeing right now. So that is a limiting factor. If we have more cloud coverage, it will be a bit of a struggle for these storms maybe to tap in. That might be the one missing ingredient. So if storms are not taking off tonight, that's going to be why. And then don't say we didn't say that was the case. I know, don't blast us, right? We said it, right? But that could be the limiting factor with this storm system. But as I mentioned before, Davion, if a storm were to tap into this environment, it does have that potential for strong tornadoes. And
updated hatching risk, entire coverage area now.
Yes.
It was only LaFleur County.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's been dramatically increasing over the last several outlooks.
Yeah.
And, again, this is a new thing they have, right? In the past, we wouldn't have a hatched area over Northwest Arkansas or the River Valley. It would just be a straight 5% risk. You had to have a 10% risk or higher in order to get the hatched outline. Now they have included that. And it verified with the first ever severe weather setup for this up in Michigan. If you guys remember, Michigan had a very strong tornado, EF3, I do believe, near Union City. And that tornado happened in a marginal.
Yeah, that was the crazy part.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we say you never want to let your guard down.
Yeah.
Because that tornado was in a 2% risk,
Uh-huh.
but they had no hatching on it.
Yeah.
So it's always one of those things where the weather can surprise you.
Exactly.
It's always surprises. You can't predict it perfectly. However, this is definitely a good system to communicate that, hey, even though the possibility is pretty low, if it were to happen, the ceiling is still a little higher.
It's on the higher side. Exactly. If it were to happen. And I like the way you said that. And I also want to mention too, just real quick, what exactly this means. I made a graphic for this if you're just tuning in. The 5% tornado risk doesn't mean a 5% chance like snow or rain, right? It's a little bit different. It means that there's a 5% chance of a strong tornado within 25 miles of a point on any particular part of this map. So like, let's say I zoom in here to Fayetteville, and I'm going to put a little ruler here. So let me pull that up, and then I'm going to push it 25 miles this way. So within 25 miles of that point along the I-49 corridor, within any single point on that map, there's a 5% chance of a tornado.
A lot higher than what a normal day would be.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's a great point that you just made, because it also takes into account climatology.
Right.
Remember, we're in springtime, right? So a 5% chance above climatology of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a point.
Exactly.
Yes. So during the wintertime, this would be a higher threat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, if you see something like that, you know it's going to be a higher threat, because wintertime, typically climatology doesn't favor as many tornadoes, though we do get quite a few here in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley still. So that's what we're dealing with there on that front. Let's see here. This guy, Murph, says the tornado in Michigan the other day was in a non-severe outlook. Ended up being an EF3. Right. You're exactly right about that. So that's why you always stay weather aware in an environment like this. Let's see here. Do you think they're going enhanced, says Taylor? That's a good question. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think if they were going to go enhanced for our area, they would have did it with this latest outlook.
Yeah.
I think they would have did it then.
There's just, yeah.
There's a lot of question marks in between the two focus points. You got the stronger system down south,
yes,
or up north, I should say. But you have another strong system down south. It's almost like it's two lows traveling at the same time.
And well, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and the stronger one is up north. But again, I do think if they were going to go enhanced, they would have done so already.
Right.
Not impossible, but yeah.
They might be waiting to see if the cloud coverage clears out.
Right.
Yeah. The thing is, okay, so, and this is why the severe weather threat is higher up there in Michigan and Illinois and Indiana, because this piece of energy that's swinging in is actually a little more subtle than the other piece of energy, which you may be thinking, all right, well, subtle piece of energy, that shouldn't be as high end. Well, the thing is, you have a warm front that's draped along these areas right now. So you've got a lot of sunshine. You've got a lot of fuel for shower and storm development. You have a tremendous amount of wind shear along the warm front. It's very unstable. So with that subtle piece of energy kicks in, instead of getting a big cluster of storms like we may get here,
isolated, kind of discrete. In fact, that Union City, that was a similar setup. That supercell formed off of a small little piece of energy that you can see on water vapor.
Yep.
And then it blew up and out ahead of the line, and it literally followed the warm front, just tracked straight northeast.
Exactly.
Three rivers over towards Union City.
You're exactly right about that. So here's another subtle piece of energy right here that could cause significant severe weather. Now, our energy is not subtle. There ain't nothing subtle about that, Davion.
At all. That is a huge. I referenced it as a bowling ball yesterday.
It is
sitting there.
It's a bowling ball low, right? And now here's the deal: bowling ball lows. So like storm chasers, like Reed Timmer, for example, they get hyped about bowling ball lows, because near the center of the low pressure system, you can get some guerrilla hail potential. You can get some absolute hogs with tornadoes. You can get big damaging wind threat and stuff like that. Like near the low pressure system in the dry line, you can get some significant severe weather. Now, east of that bowling ball low, sometimes the storm mode can get messy.
get a little messy.
It can get a little messy. So that's our limiting factor, right? These storms, by the time they get to Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley, may be a little bit more of a mess.
Yeah.
Now, the cold front is going to be moving in at the same time. So along those storms, along that line, you're still going to have that QLCS potential and everything.
Yep.
And as much as we talk about QLCS potential, right, and how it can be dangerous, because it can sneak up on you, and it here in our area, we've seen it before.
Right.
We saw it 3 years ago out in Springdale. That tornado and a marginal risk ended up going off, and we could potentially see it again tonight, right? Those QLCS tornadoes can ramp up very quickly. So there's a limit to how strong they can be sometimes, but at the same time, they can also be very dangerous because of how quickly they spin up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I mentioned how quickly they spin up. They're there. Sometimes they're there, do damage, and then they're gone the next radar scan.
Yeah.
And you're left wondering, wait, what happened?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we do the training and get focused on what we're seeing, because there are subtle signs that if you pay attention of, you can see something trying to happen.
Exactly.
You just have to be real vigilant about it.
Exactly. Watch it like a hawk. That's what I say all the time. Watch it like a hawk.
Look at the wave. They're saying it's going to become more of an open wave, and that's just going to support even more just a lot of energy.
Yes.
A lot of convection, kind of the messy storm modes.
Messy storm modes, exactly. So, again, a bit of the opposite problem of last Friday, I feel like, or well, not a problem, good for us, right? But a problem for the storms. Yeah. That could be their limiting factor. I do want to show the model run one last time, just because there's some people that may be tuning in right now that maybe want to see what's going on with the latest high resolution model. So we'll certainly do that here before we wrap things up, because we're over 30 minutes in. If you guys want more information, make sure you tune in to Beyond the Forecast with Leslie Castro. That's going to be starting in about 5 minutes on 479 First. So once we wrap up here, Leslie is going to transition to that, and she's going to have all the latest details there. So just make sure you guys have that ready to rock and roll once we wrap up. But let's take a look at the latest high-resolution model. Again, it's not showing a whole lot of activity, Davion, this afternoon. It is showing some clearing at 5, 6 o'clock. Will that be too late in the process?
Right.
That's
going to be a good question. I will say this. We had a lot of cloud cover yesterday until about 5, 6 o'clock.
Exactly.
And even though it was late, we have that extra hour of sunshine. Temperature still rose a few degrees around 6, 7 o'clock before they finally started to drop off again.
Yes.
So that'll be something to watch if we do start to clear out.
And you're exactly right about that. And it doesn't take a lot.
It does.
Does not take a lot with this setup for that surface-based instability to start getting tapped into, right?
Especially since, like we said earlier, the moisture has been here since last night.
Exactly.
Had dew points in the mid-60s in the River Valley.
You're exactly right, because the instability is already here.
Right.
Right. It's not like we need it or anything, right? Or just-in-time moisture, stuff like that. It's already in place. The thing is that your instability can be in place, but if you have cloud coverage all day, the storms can't break through, right? The basis can't be low enough, and it can't tap into the surface-based instability. So that's really what I'm watching the closest right now. Now, this model doesn't show any storms throughout the evening hours as well. We'll see if that actually happens. I have some doubts about that because there's going to be a tremendous amount of forcing, as you mentioned earlier. So we'll see. But boom, here we go. 12, 1 o'clock. It's a lot of storms.
Storm mode, yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of storms, a lot of precipitation. Still something to watch.
Still something to watch. Exactly. And look in the River Valley. These storms are a little more stout compared to Northwest Arkansas, at least in terms of how significant they are. But look how they kind of weaken as they move a little bit farther east. So, again, we'll see if the HRRR is actually right. I always say these models are not even close to perfect. It just gives you a general idea of what could happen. And so we'll watch those trends very closely. I'm trying to think if there's one more thing I want to show real quick. Let's look at the graph, 3 kilometer. Does it even go far enough out? Oh, it does. So the graph is showing the storms moving in a little bit quicker in the River Valley.
Right.
Doesn't show a whole lot in Northwest Arkansas, but remember the graph is also a model that underdoes things a lot. But that's a pretty stout line in the River Valley right there. Matter of fact, that might be an embedded supercell there just off to the south and east of Fort Smith near Waldron. So that would be a problem right there. You can see a little hook right there. So we will see what actually comes to fruition, but had to give this live update out, Davion, because we had that new upgrade with the tornado potential. Again, Davion, Leslie, and Dan will be here this evening watching things closely. If something uptrends or if there's something you need to know about, they'll be here. Of course, when the weather is actually rolling through, we'll be on the live stream and stuff like that, giving you all the latest details. Again, Tune into 479 First right now. Leslie Castro is about to have Beyond the Forecast. She's going to have new details, new timing, another look at the severe weather outlook. But for now, we got to wrap things up, Davion. We got to get ready to rock and roll here. But really appreciate you guys tuning in. God bless and have a safe and great rest of your Tuesday.